So thanks for joining me today, Rob. I really appreciate the
Yeah,
time that you're taking out to talk with us. So can you tell me when you decided to play harmonica?
yeah, around 1966. I was probably going from ninth into 10th grade, and there was a harmonica laying around the house. My two older brothers played guitar, and I think one of them had a harmonica. It was into Bob Dylan kind of stuff and whatever. They used to threaten me not to touch their guitars when they went out because I was like this young punk teenager, and I thought, well, who's going to know if I pick up that harmonica? So I developed this little relationship with the harmonica because I knew I wouldn't break it and I could just put it back when I was done. So around 1966, and I was listening to the AM radio. So the Beatles had a little bit of harmonica, and of course Bob Dylan, and like a Rolling Stone and that kind of stuff, and Stevie Wonder. I kind of knew that was harmonica too, but a different kind or something. But that's what I was listening to.
Okay. What kind of a harmonica did you start out with?
A Honer Marine Band
Okay.
was pretty much what they were making for the small ones at the time. They didn't have like today. They have like 50 different types, but
Right.
back then it was the Honer Marine Band. And they went for around $2, and then they went up to two and a quarter, but in the 60s.
Awesome. So you play both diatonic and chromatic harmonicas?
Yes, yes, I do. A couple of years after I started getting into the little one, I would say maybe about 4 or 5 years later, I discovered that there was a chromatic, and it was a little more money, so I had to save up, and then I got a chromatic, and then I realized that that was probably the one that Stevie Wonder was using with the button on the side, and but it was kind of terrifying going from the little one to the bigger one because I didn't know what to expect.
How did you learn the harmonica? I mean, are you self-taught or did you take lessons?
There wasn't much resource back then. Of course, we didn't have the internet like we have today, and YouTube with all these great instructionals. And if you had questions, you're pretty much on your own unless you knew somebody that was already doing it. And in New Jersey, there it wasn't like a big blues scene in the '60s. So what I did is I would go to the music stores, and in this one music store, I grew up in Linden, New Jersey. There was, they had sheet music and stuff, and they had some instructional books for guitar, Mel Bay, but they had one book by Tony Little's son Glover, and it said blues harp on the cover. And I said, well, that's the only one. I got to get it. So I bought that book, and I kind of learned from reading that book chapter to chapter. And he would mention in the book, he would mention different players. So I'd go out and, he'd say it's Sonny Terry. Then I'd go to the library and try and
Nice.
take out a Sonny Terry record. So that's how I learned, by the seat of my pants.
Wow, that's awesome. What inspired you to play blues?
Well, the blues, yeah. So I was listening to pop radio, and then my mother owned a candy store. My father was like a construction worker. My mom bought this candy store, and she wanted to try something. And we had 5 kids, so she had to be able to keep her eye on the kids. And so we lived above the candy store. But one day, this guy, Harry Venezia, he was sort of like a tough guy with a leather coat and smoking cigarettes. But he also was very artistic as well. He had, he was like an artist. He
Uh-huh.
would sketch things. And so he was a pretty unique guy. And he came in the store one day where because a lot of the kids would hang out in the back room. We had a jukebox, and
Okay.
he came in with the first Paul Butterfield record, and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "you guys," he's talking to me and my two older brothers, "you take this record and check it out. I think you're gonna like it. You guys would like this, and then give it back to me when you're done." And it was a Paul Butterfield record, and I didn't, it didn't sound like anything I was listening to. It was blues, but from a newer generation. I didn't even
Right.
know what the original generation, and I liked it, and the harmonica sounded more like a saxophone because it was amplified and not just handheld. So that was groundbreaking. So that was my introduction to the blues. And then I realized, he was doing like Little Walter songs, and I said, "Who's Little Walter? Who's Muddy Waters?" And then I went back to the library.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
What's the first album or record that you ever bought? Do you remember?
First record that I bought for myself, because like I said, my two older brothers were already buying stuff, and I would try and listen to stuff. But the Beatles. It was Meet the Beatles. And I remember going with my dad one Sunday to EJ Corvettes, and I saw it, there's the band everybody's talking about. And I
Uh-huh.
said, my father was just, he had heavy Italian accent. He was from Italy. He came over here as a prisoner of war in the Second World War. And and he goes, "What's it at?" And I'm going like, "It's the Beatles, man. Everybody's buying their stuff." And I had to beg him about half hour, and he bought the record. It was
Okay.
like $1.98. It was a lot of money when you get 5.50. He
Yeah.
bought the record, and me and my brothers, of course, played the heck out of it. So that
Nice.
was my first record. Yeah,
Do you still have it?
I still have it. I still have it. I think I might have bought a newer copy of it
Yeah.
over the years because I was just playing it for my grandkids down in the basement the other day,
Oh, that's
and
great.
because they heard about the Beatles, through their mom and through me and whatever. But I think they liked it. They like the sound of it and they're interested in it. So
Oh,
that's
that's
pretty
good.
cool. That music lives on. Yeah.
Good. Got to pay it
And
forward.
then, yeah, and then the second record I got was sort of like a loner. My older brother Lou worked at Ampeg Amplifiers in Linden, New Jersey, which had since moved to, I think, Memphis or Tennessee. But they started in Linden, so they were a famous amplifier company. And in that factory, somebody it was like an older black gentleman, maybe worked in the mail room, and he knew my brother, and he lent him the best of Little Walter, and he said, "You should check this out." And Luke figured, "Wow, my brother's playing harmonica a little bit now." And he brought it home, and I saw the record, man, a big picture of Little Walter's head on the cover with a
Yeah.
harmonica, and that kind of answered a lot of questions about the transition from Butterfield to where they came from and the Chicago blues scene. So it answered a lot of questions.
Who was your biggest influence on you as far as yeah, I guess who was your biggest influence overall?
Yeah, for blues. So for blues, I mean, my first reference was
Well,
Butterfield.
yeah.
So I would start to buy his records and listen to them and see how much of that I could copy. Then the '70s hit, and a band called Jay
Your break.
Giles came out of Boston, and I was going to college at the time, right? And they were a great band, and I went to their concert at my college. I was going to Newark State, which became Kane College
Uh-huh.
and Kane University, and they were playing for the orientation. So I said, "Wow,
Nice.
I like these guys. I have their first record. I'm going to go." And I went to their thing, and I'm walking around trying to get familiar with, because I was coming over from Union College, and I'm trying to learn my way around this new school for the
Yep.
orientation. And they had the Jay Giles band playing outside that day as
Nice.
part of the orientation. And they weren't real big yet. I knew who they were because I bought their first record.
Right.
And I run into this guy, Jay Giles, who's the guitar player.
Yep.
And he's going, "Oh, you're going," and I said, "Oh, I'm going to school here. You're Jay Giles. Wow." And he's going, "Oh, so, what do you study?" And I said, "Oh, I'm studying sociology or whatever I'm studying." And he said, do you play music?" And I said, "Yeah, I play harmonica." He goes, "Oh, then you need to come back stage and meet Magic Dick. Come on." And he was being real nice. And they were
Nice.
sitting in some little room. They just got off a plane. They were eating hot dogs from the grill outside, and they're getting ready to go on. And I just sat there with Magic Dick for about an hour. And I had a harmonica. I didn't dare take it out, and just picked his brain and asked, and he's saying, and then Little Walter came. "Do you know Little Walter?" And I'm going, "Well, kind of." He goes, "Do you have this record and do you have that record?" And I started writing it down.
Uh-huh.
So it was pretty. Little Walter, I'm sorry, Magic Dick,
Yep.
really reinforced what I needed to learn, and I started working on. And then I went and found out about James Cotton, and so that's how I did everything, because we didn't, like I said, have the internet,
Yep.
or there's no formal books for harmonica players.
Yeah.
There was that one little silly book, Blues Harp, and that was it.
So I know that you were with the Hudson River Rats. Can you tell me how that band formed and your experience with them?
Yeah, the Hudson River Rats kind of came. I was already playing. Me and my brother Mario. He was my second oldest, my first oldest brother, and then there was Lou above him. We started a little band because he knew that I could sing a little bit and maybe play harmonica. So he was interested in blues stuff too, because he liked Mike Bloomfield off of that first Butterfield record. So
Sure.
he was impressed with that kind of. So we started playing blues, but there weren't many venues in New Jersey that you could get a gig at playing blues. So we started a band. We called it. We met a guy from Teaneck, who's a guitar player, Bruce Uchitel. His dad was like the first viola in the New York Opera, and but his kid was playing blues on guitar. So he had a band, and he called it the Psychotic Blues Band. And we had all these characters in it, and why don't we had horns? We added horns, and
Wow.
we had a four-piece horn section, and this was kind of before Blood, Sweat, and Tears, and the Electric Flag and all that. So we had horns, and then we found out, wow, some bands are using horns too. So we started getting little local gigs, but we couldn't. The bars, we were too young for the bars,
Right.
and the bars in New Jersey at the time were on Route 35, and they were like lounges and top 40 kind of thing. So we knew that we couldn't go there, but we found a little coffee house in Morristown called the Thirsty Ear, and they served the English muffins and coffee and tea, and so we could play there. I was
Okay.
17 at the time. And then my brother was a little older. He was going to Union College, and he got on the student council, and he weaseled us a gig opening up. They hired BB King to play
Oh,
at the
wow.
and he said we're going to open for them because I'm on the student council. I said, great, BB King. And 1969, I opened up for Sly and the Family Stone at the Stanley Theater in Newark. Now they
Nice.
had just come from Woodstock, that summer, and they were getting big, but not real big yet. So I mean, I was getting these things as I'm a front man now for this little blues band in New Jersey
That's
that
great.
nobody's coming to see except for a coffee house. And but the concert thing was what we got thrown into because we were playing blues and we didn't know where else to go. So that this is all before the Hudson River Rats. So Psychotic Blues Band, we would open for BB King and Deodato and at King College and BB King, and then we met this guy Bruce Springsteen who was playing down in Asbury Park because our friend from Linden, Pat Carlin, was a guitar player from the 1910 Fruit Gum Company, which like a bubblegum band. And he moved down the shore and he met this guy, Bruce Springsteen, who was, he was a starving musician playing in the clubs down there. And he said, well, you should call my agent up. I have an agent, when I was with the Fruit Gum Company. And he goes, and maybe he can help you. He goes, I'm not ready yet because I'm putting a new band together. So Bruce said, okay, I'll take the number. He took the number down. And this guy, Mike Appel, who was Pat's manager at the time, called
Right.
Bruce, and he goes, I got an audition with John Hammond. You want to come and do it? And it was like this rainy Sunday, and they drove into New York together. But so I knew Bruce before that,
Wow.
at that time, and I was doing shows with him down in Asbury Park, my band and his band. And then he'd come up to Linden and sit in and with our band and that kind of thing. So that was the Psychotic Blues Band. And then that thing eventually broke up and everybody went off with their life. Now we're in the mid 70s. I finished college
Hmm.
and everybody's trying to make a living. And we still couldn't get any gigs in New Jersey. There still were no blues clubs. If you went into New York, you might get a gig, it's not going to pay a lot. So we started venturing into Manhattan. We found a place called the Fugue downtown. And then there was Dan Lynch's you could go sit in, and if you were playing blues, but New York was always a drag. It was hard to get in, or your
Yeah.
car got stolen, or you get a ticket. So even though we were close to New York, I didn't do a whole lot in New York. I stayed on the Jersey side,
Hmm.
and it was harder and harder to play the blues stuff. It kept going, and then fast forward, I guess, to around the '80s. Um, Now I'm still playing my harmonica, and I realized that if I really liked harmonica, I wanted to get serious about it. I couldn't just play blues. We're living 50 minutes from New York. If I wanted to be a harmonica player that got hired, they have movies, they have jingles, they have soundtracks, they have everything of it. But if I wanted to do it on harmonica, I had to learn how to read music. So I found a teacher over in New York that would teach me how to read music on the harmonica, and I did. I learned that, and then I started getting calls once I learned how to read for jingles and commercials, and I even got a call for a Broadway show in like 1984, and it was called Big River. In fact, you
Okay.
can see the poster in the back. And I had just started a day job, at the time. My first daughter was born, and I bought a house, and they're saying, "You want to come and join this Broadway?" And I said, "I just got a job, like I think I was going to be like, I had a degree in sociology, because I just learned how to read music, and so then doors started opening up. So anyway, I eventually didn't take the show, but then the guy who took it called me and said, "Why don't you come in and sub for me?" So I started meeting these New York people, and uh, and then I got a phone call from some guys from Jersey, John and Steve Conti, who were Jersey Shore musicians. Their mom, I have like a wedding band I started. I knew that I had to make money, so I found out if you had a wedding band, then you could actually get hired. So my brother said, "You can't play harmonica in a wedding band." I said,
Yeah.
"Well," he goes, "You play a little piano." I said, "Yeah, but not really. I just noodle on, you're going to be the piano player." And I said, "Oh man, now I still can't play my harmonica. So we had this wedding band, and I got a call from these guys that were playing. John and Steve were going to William Patterson. They were younger. Their
Right.
mom was like a jazz singer, and we used to do some weddings with their mom. And we still had this blues band, which was kind of becoming R&B. We had to find out ways to get gigs. We
Right.
still had some horns, but we're starting to get into some Joe Sample and Lee Ritenour. We're trying to
Expand
jazz it
your,
up a little bit, yeah, make it more sellable. So we're doing gigs, and we needed a bass player. Our bass player quit, and Rosemary Conti said, "Why don't you call my son?" I said, "Well, how old's your son?" Well, he's only 16, but he's really good. You would. So we called him down, and he joined the band. It was called at that point. Now we had changed it from the Psychotic Blues Band to Mario's Rhythm and Blues All Stars.
okay.
We seemed to be able to get more work that way, getting
Right.
away
Without the
from
blues in there. Yeah.
right? In New Jersey. We found some clubs. There was Kathy's Place out in Somerset, and a couple of little joints would start to hire us. The Denellen Hotel in Denellen would have us every week, and we'd play there. And um, and then eventually, I got a phone call from the Conti boys, that's John and Steve, and they said they were playing with blood, sweat, and tears because they were at William Patterson College, and David Clayton Thomas came in and was hiring jazz rock players. And they were playing. Said, "We play with him every weekend, but we want to play some blues when we come home. Rob, you're like a front guy, right? You could sing and play your harp, and you could front the band." And I said, "Well, where do you want it?" You go, "Well, we got this place in New York." And I did, where? They said, "We got this place down in the village called Under Acme, and we could go there and play every Wednesday night and be the house band." And I'm going, and then they're going to open it into it. After the first set, it'll be a jam on it. Going like, I hate jams. I don't want to go to New York and do a jam session. And they said, "Why don't you just try it?" So I tried it, and it turned into a scene because apparently in 1985 there still was not a blues scene in New York. There was Dan Lynch's downtown, but there was not like a bona fide blues club in New York. And I said, "Wow, okay, they're letting us play our blues stuff." So it was a club called Under Acme on Great Jones Street, and we could play a whole set of blues. And then they did this jam thing, but it turned out that the jam was pretty hip because people like Cyndi Lauper and Carole King and Buster Poindexter and Blue Marini and Will Lee. They were coming to this jam because they wanted to play. They were doing jingles and records all day, and they wanted to play some blues at night.
Oh, that's
I mean,
amazing.
I didn't know these people, but the guy running it did.
Right.
So it was kind of cool. I mean, Julian Lennon came up to me on the line at the bathroom one night. Place was packed. And he's going, "I want to play a blues." He goes, "Is Johnny B. Good a blues?" And I'm going like, "Yeah." And you're John's son, so you got to come up.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. That's
So that's
amazing.
how it started. So that's the Hudson River Rat story. That's how the Hudson. And I said, "What do you guys want to call this thing?" So, "Well, we're living in Weehawken, and we're going to school, and we're right on the Hudson. I'd like to call it the Hudson River." I said, "That's fine with
Yeah.
me."
Do you ever still get back together to play some gigs?
We haven't. We haven't. We've talked about it, but everybody kind of went off
Yeah.
and did their thing. So we haven't done that. We haven't had a reunion.
And then I also see you with the original Blues Brothers band for a while. How was that experience?
Yeah, that was later. So then around the turn of the century, around 1999, 2000, I got a phone call from Steve Cropper's manager. And they said, we have the original Blues Brothers band from the movie, and we still, want to play, but Dan Aykroyd says it's fine, go play, but he's not going to go to Europe, and
Yeah.
in Asia and all that. So they needed a singer. And I said, well, you need two singers, right? And they go, no, we just have one blues brother. And then our special guest, Eddie Floyd, is our other singer. And I'm saying, like, so just one blues brother? Okay. So who would I be, Jake or Elwood, you know? And I remembered the movie, which I thought was hilarious, but I kind of didn't like the movie when it came out because I thought they were kind of making fun of the blues stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, I put on a hat and sunglasses, but I'm getting a call from Steve Cropper. So okay, well, I can't say no. I guess I got to go do this thing. So I went, you know, these songs. I said, I do. Um, and I play harmonica, and they weren't that interested in the harmonica. They go, well, that's fine, you know, but, you know, we need you to sing these songs. So I learned all the songs, and we went out on the first gig. The first gig was in Poland, you know, an outdoor gig at the steps of the government building or something. And I went to take out, and the first song is She Caught the Katy, which opens the Blues Brothers movie, but it's a song by Taj Mahal, and it has harmonica in it.
Yeah.
So I went to take out my harmonica, and Blue Lou Marini's going, no, Rob, he goes, it's not a harmonica solo anymore. And I said, well, Dan Aykroyd played it, you know, and Taj Mahal played. They go, it's a trombone solo now, you know. So they said you could play your harmonica at the end of the song over the one chord, and I'm going, yeah. I just put it back in my pocket, and the next night we're in some kind of fancy a yacht club in Monaco,
Right.
and and we have another gig there. And I was kind of nervous at my second gig, so I'm in the back getting dressed. I'm sitting by myself and I'm playing my harp. And Steve Cropper came in, he's going, Eddie Floyd, come on in here. He goes, listen to that stuff that Rob's playing on the harmonica. He goes, we got to work that into the show. And I'm going like, duh, you
Finally.
know. So that's how I weaseled my way in with that. And I did I'm still kind of doing it. I mean, they don't get many gigs. There's not many of them left, but 2020. So I guess about 20 years, 20 plus years, I've been doing that on
Okay.
and off, you know, Hudson River Rats.
And then you've got the Blood, Sweat, and Tears gig, which was probably, do you still, I mean, so you still tour with them, I'm assuming?
No, with them, no, they actually still tour and they have a
Yeah.
great band. It's all young guys now, no originals.
Okay.
I, when I did it, I I was playing a harmonica on David Clayton Thomas's solo record, so they kind of introduced me to him, and he knew who I was, but I don't even think he knew I was a singer. But then when he went back to Canada, the guy Bobby Colomby owned the name of the band. They wanted to keep it going, so they brought Steve Katz, the original guitar player, back, and then I did it with Steve for about 5 years, and that was around 2006 to around 2012 or something like
Okay.
that. And that's when I did it, and it was fun. I mean, that was a totally different thing for me to learn, and it turns out that Steve Katz played all those original harmonica parts on "And When I Die," and so I just was the singer. So that's
Okay.
what I did.
All right.
Played a little tiny bit of harmonica.
Do you have any pre-show rituals?
Not really. I mean, I get nervous before all my shows, like a lot of other
Yeah.
people. I was just talking with somebody about this the other day. One of my students is now Sting's harmonica player, and he was saying, you know, he goes, I know a lot of harmonica players get. I said, not just harmonica players get nervous. Everybody, all
Yeah.
musicians get nervous before they perform. But my thing, before a show, I just try and chill out, not even think about the music or any. I do my warm ups earlier in the day, my vocal warm ups, warm up a little bit on the harmonica, and then try and just forget about it until I get out on that stage. Because every audience is different, and you never know what you're going to be up against. So you can't make up a set list and don't. This is what we're going to do
Right.
tonight.
You have to adapt.
You don't know what the crowd wants to hear, you know.
That's a good point. I listened to your last release, Etruscan Soul. Is that how you pronounce it? Etruscan?
Yes, yes.
Do you have a favorite song on that album?
Yeah, it's probably Ticket to Ride, the opening song,
Okay.
because I mean it incorporated the Beatles, which I first kind of grew up listening to, and with the blues, I kind of did it in a bluesy way. So I love all those songs. They're all covers. I did
Yep.
15 cover songs. I didn't write any originals for it, and but that I would say is my favorite of them
Okay.
all.
Yeah, I liked Body and Soul. That one really stuck with me.
Thanks. Yeah, that was I kind of snuck that in as a jazz tune, right? And I snuck it in. Um, but it works. I think it works.
Yeah. Do you have any upcoming projects or collaborations that you can share with us?
Um, let's see. There's one I'm working on now. I can't share it with you because it's a new movie coming out, and I'm involved somehow with it. But um, and that's all I'll say on it. It's gonna be about Bob Dylan, but that's all I can say.
Okay.
Um, and then I'm going to Japan in a couple of weeks with Bernard Purdy, the drummer,
Yep.
and that's kind of like with I'm putting the band together, and it'll just be like a 5-piece band, and we'll go over there and we'll do a week with Tokyo, Yokohama, and Osaka, and then come home. And then in 2 weeks, I think I'm going to University of Orlando. I'm playing with their big band, and we're going to do some blues with a big band
Oh, nice.
that we arranged, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. It should be a cool gig.
You're keeping yourself quite busy. Do you ever see yourself retiring in the future?
I keep saying I'm gonna. I'm being a little more selective about what I take. I'm not
Okay.
taking like everything that comes along. I teach a little bit online like this, I'll have some students. And I'll do some recording from home. People will send me tracks and then
Okay.
I'll just play them. And I kind of like that, not having to go to a studio or schlep into New York to go to a studio. Um, so I do see myself retiring a little. We're not there yet, but
Okay.
we're getting there.
All right. Good, good. Do you have any hobbies outside of music?
Outside of music, I don't really have any. I've never had time for like legit hobbies. I pretty much just I like to walk and I like spending time with my grandkids and stuff like they're real simple stuff,
Yeah.
just to kind
You
of
got
get
to enjoy
away
your
from
family. Do you have any words of wisdom for up and coming bands or musicians out there trying to make it in the music business?
the business. My son's playing guitar now, and it seems like he's in the music business. He teaches a lot, and he really likes it. He plays out with a little jazz band that he has, and I know it's a different world out there now. So I don't want to give too much advice because it might not be applicable. It's a different way of selling yourself these days,
Yeah.
right? I mean, young people don't sell records anymore. They do it on Spotify and this
Yeah.
and that and market themselves online. So I've kind of I've never really gotten that deep into that. So my advice is to just try and be the best musician you can, whether it's blues or jazz or rock and roll. Just make yourself um, as familiar as you can with music in general, and then bring that to whatever you're going to do. And whether it's blues or country or bluegrass, it's going to help you. It helped me keeping my ears open when I went into a situation that way. Um, it was limiting and it made my job harder. So it depends on what you would do. I would say, try and get along with as many different musicians as you can and get out there and try and listen to as much different kind of music as you can. Go out and see live music. Don't just bury yourself. A lot of young guys and girls I know now are getting into the YouTube and they're sitting there and they're playing in the room. But that's great because
Right.
I wish we had some of that tool when we were starting out. But get yourself out and go to jams, which
Yeah.
I hated doing, but go to a jam and force yourself to sit in and meet other musicians. It's all about the networking.
Right.
I mean, and even guys like as big as Quincy Jones would tell you that
Okay.
music's a small part of it.
All right. Well, those are all the questions I had for you, Rob. I thank you
All
very
right.
much for your time
Thank
today.
you for having me.